And welcome back to the hottest marriage show in the world. It is I, John D, and my wife, Kanika.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
That's good. How was your week this past week? How was this past week for you?
Man, so I took a week off for spring break, just to spend time with the family. And then that next week showed up. And it was like I got there. I cleared out on the first day of my vacation. I went in there and I cleared out like 50 messages. I came back to 127 messages, email, not even just like, and then you had to add voicemail. It was rough. Yeah.
The reason why I asked you, because hearing it yesterday, it was look, y'all have no idea. It's way worse than that. Well, it wasn't worse. It was just filled with so many different responsibilities that I was overwhelmed listening. Really. I was like, oh my gosh. Cause when things happen in your life that you're aware of, you can understand. You be like, why are they acting like that though? I'm not feeling that. And then when you ask more questions or they volunteer information, you're like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Like why they were feeling something like that.
Yeah. It took like a day and a half to get to respond adequately to everything. And you get caught up in the chain of someone else's reply all, and you just be like, okay, where does this even end? Presentations, meetings. It was just a monster. But I'm here.
Yeah, you're still standing.
I made it to the end.
So the question I got for you is, how do you parent differently from your parents?
I think the biggest thing is that there's no direct spiritual component in raising our kids. Like we started out like that, but it's not, we don't formally go to church and are involved in, different branches of the church, like the usher board and stuff. We don't do that. And I definitely did that for the most part of my childhood.
I didn't even think about that part.
Yeah. I think that's a really, what the thing is that I know that there are a lot of reasons why people worship. But one of the biggest things is to be a good person, to be Christ-like or representative of what God had intended, or whoever you serve is like reaching a divine or a better place, enlightenment, whatever the case may be. And somehow, some way, it wasn't a key component like at the forefront of our parenting, but we got some good kids. They're like good people. Sure. And so I'm always thankful of that, but I've been more mindful of that lately. Like that's really not a key component to what I do, but it was definitely how my mom directed us. Not in a bad way.
Of course not.
But she definitely, she was in the choir. So we grew up running through the aisles while they were having choir rehearsal and singing the songs. And then, my brother's on the usher board and I'm in the choir. And we're, my brother's a pianist. So he's like directing choirs and stuff. So it was just a part of, we were using our gifts. That was our, you get gifts and then you use them. I haven't really imparted that onto my kids. I think the only thing that I've really focused on is treating people the way you want to be treated. And thankfully, they took that and they ran with it because they're very, very mindful of others. So, yeah, I think that's the thing that I struggle with sometimes. Like, I know that I'm guiding them under the same ideas that I had the loving part, and focusing on being good to people. But I don't really, it's interesting when I think about gifts. I ask the kids about what they're going to be and what they're going to do as a way of figuring out how they're going to use their gift. But it's not in the same way that my mom,
what do you mean,
guided us. Like Dallas he has a gift for understanding. Like, he wants to help people. He wants them to live a better life. He wants to, environmentally, he's very, very aware of, we're building all of these houses and they're big and there's, 2 people living in them, and it's not enough. Like, he thinks about stuff like that, smaller, more environmentally conscious ideas of buildings, and can we put plants here in order to, increase the square footage of foliage and oxygen, produce all that stuff. And one of the things I used to say is like, I remember somebody said, ask your kids what problem in the world they want to solve. Mm-hmm. And Dallas's love and gift of, like, he was always a kid that could take lessons from different classes and content and incorporate them all together. And so Dallas would take history, and then he would take science, and then he would pull it all together, and he would tell you how this connects to that. And it gave him such a great view of the world when he would describe it to me and what he planned to do. It's like he looks so much broader at things and the betterment of things for people, like, and genuinely. And so I know that he's expressing his gift that way. And Day's gift is more of, it's a creativity. And I'm trying to figure out where she's going to go. Like, will she end up being an author? Will she end up being an artist of some other sort, a visual artist? What will she do? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. But I'm definitely about them using their gifts. But until this moment, I hadn't realized that I really look at it very differently than when I grew up. Your gift was whatever God gave you, and then you use it to edify him and to spread his word and what have you. And I don't operate like that when I look at them.
What was your gift?
Song.
Okay, so do you think, I heard you describe growing up, like, I guess what I interpreted was religion was used for making better people.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. In the idea of love, like, when I think of Christianity, I don't think of love. Mm. And I was like, how does one learn that?
Christianity is based on who's holding it, whoever represents it. Like, Christianity could definitely be interpreted and used for things that are hurtful to other people. We've seen it done.
Like, what do you mean?
Like conquering people and enslaving them and explaining why certain things should be and shouldn't be. There's a lot. People like to go and take a scripture out of the Bible, and then that's just a scripture. Yeah. It's not, there's no context. There's no understanding of the backstory. There's no understanding of what's to come or whatever. And you can do that to justify good and bad acts, just depending on who is the one holding the Bible and who is the one using the words. Because I don't think that any religion is bad. All of them are a way to understand the world around them. It's a form of comfort. It's an understanding of that higher power that, like, I full-heartedly believe there's a higher power that created this beautiful, like, piece of science that we are. And when I say that, I'm like, when you talk about the proportions of the human body, the way that our body functions, the way that the complexities of the world that we live in, I know that there is a God. And I don't think that anybody actually intends for how they worship to hinder or hurt someone else. They feel like they're doing what they're supposed to do. It's all about interpretation. But I growing up in my family, Christianity wasn't weaponized. Like, you can choose, just like people can choose what they pull out of the Bible and they can justify bad acts. Like, in my family, you looked to it to comfort you or to encourage you, to give you a little bit of strength, make you feel like, you know, I can do this, to value people, to value one another, faithfulness, things of that nature. And so I believe that religion is as dangerous as the person who holds that message and who amplifies it. Mm-hmm. But I also think it can be just as healing. I could think it could be just as comforting. It could be a guide to people who may not have had a good guide growing up, mm-hmm. and they find it and it's something that they buy into and they're like, okay, and it leads them to be what they hadn't seen before. I do believe that it could be weaponized, but for me, it wasn't. In my family, no. And I think that that's evidenced by, there's no, like, there with my family is interesting. There's multiple branches I think I've talked about before. And in my particular branch of my grandmother on my mom's side, we all got together, just my grandmother's lineage, and to be around them, and they're all really good people. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't be trying to bother people. I have some cousins that are some busybodies, but for that group is different. And my grandmother was very, very different. She was quiet. She was very peaceful, but she was very firm. So even though she was this little quiet woman, you knew when you were getting out of line. And the peacefulness and the order and the good-heartedness that she had, I can see it in every one of my cousins. When I sat around and I looked at them, and so was
that built off of religion, Christianity?
I think for her it was. She was that person not only because it was her personality, but because she was dedicated to being everything she was supposed to be, everything God told her she could be. And in that, she poured it into my mom and my uncles. And what's interesting is my mom had us in the church, but my uncles, they didn't go to church. Like, their wives went and took the kids, but they didn't go. But one of the things I remember talking to my uncle, my oldest uncle, and he said, I don't need to go in that building. He said, I worship every day. Me and God, we have our own relationship. And he was the first person that imparted the message on me that, you know, you used to hear in church, your personal relationship with God. But he was the first person that was like, I can't have, like, all this stuff that y'all are doing in here, that's not really for me. But I know that I have my own relationship with God. And so with that, I feel like I've seen so many representations of how you can love and practice your faith, and like, it's just good people. And it's not just because it's my family, because I have family that I'd be like, But in this case, I just think that she was guided by her faith. She was a really good person, but she was definitely guided by her faith in supporting her kids and raising them, and then supporting her kids in raising us. So I just feel like it was a ripple effect.
When did it shift?
To what?
To your parenting. Like, because the way that you grew up is, like you said, is totally different from, like, so when did you feel like you didn't want to do it that way?
Yeah. So I remember I remember when I was in Maryland, and I used to go to, what was that church called? Empowerment Temple with Jamal Harrison Bryant. And it was so, like, I hated that job there. And it was so moving, like going there, you're so motivated. Like I was fired up every week. Okay, I'm gonna go back into this. I can do it. And then that job dang near broke me and I left. And then we ended up in Atlanta. And when we were in Atlanta, I was like, I'm trying to find a church home. I'm going to these places and nothing feels right. Like everything was so big. It was mega this and mega that. And had like they in Dallas, they were up there. I have videos of Dallas explaining different pictures of things that were going on in the Bible. And it's so funny to listen to him and how he understood things. It was really great. And then they went to a Christian charter school. I loved what they were learning there. It was great. But then when I went back and I was like, I'm going to find a church. I got in this church and it was like the last thing. I just couldn't go anywhere else anymore. I was just gone, and it felt good to be there. And I remember one time people weren't paying the tithes. Like they had built and done way more than their actual membership was supporting with their tithes. And so, I mean, like TV shows and stuff. And he was getting on everybody about getting their tithes in, because if they didn't, he was going to have to cancel this show. And it was going to impact his ministry, you know, internationally. But my thing was, because we lived in the SWATs, we lived in Southwest Atlanta, and there was a lot of need there that initially it made me feel some kind of way, because I took care of, or I taught kids in these neighborhoods that were going to this church. And he was talking to me about going internationally and going outside of the neighborhood, and there was no presence in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And so that really bothered me. But because my ministry is music, I was so wrapped up, and that's something that you can't really do, but I did. I got so wrapped up in the emotion and in the release I got from the music ministry that I ignored it. And I remember when I invited you there, and Kari came with me, my older brother. And I remember you asking, it was during Tides. Tides took 30 minutes. And they were passing around stuff, and he was, you know, telling everybody, like really running people through the ringer in the pulpit about how they needed to do this. They need to do, you know, first fruits. You need to give your first check of the month, you know, your whole first check, and then you're going to, and I was like, okay, but I wasn't paying attention. And you said, we are talking about money a lot. And I listened to you, and then I was sitting there, and it was true. And when we went home, I remember, now one thing I will say, because I grew up in the same house as Kari, and I really respect him, his view of things really, really impacts me as well. And after that day, he never said anything about going to that church again. He didn't say anything bad about it. But with Kari, he's not going to speak negatively. You know, he's the type of person, like, if you don't have something nice to say, unless it's really funny, and then he's going to say it, but he's going to say it really jokingly. But if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything at all. And when I took a cue from him, and I was thinking about what you said, and I was like, Kari never said anything. And so one day I said something to him about it, and he was like, yeah, there was a lot of talk. Like, there was a lot of talk about money. And it's not that it's bad, but when I put all those things together, I'm thinking to myself, all of these kids, all these people that should be ministered to in this neighborhood, and he was giving us the business for not supporting international broadcasting. And I was just like, I don't understand. So I was like, you know, that was my like my 90th church that I tried in Atlanta. And I was like, you know, it's just going to have to be about a personal relationship. And that's okay. And it just went from me going directly into the Bible to me and my personal relationship with God, and whatever I was supposed to know or be or do, I just had to be a good person.
Yeah.
And I had to push that into my children so that they can be they can impact people exponentially beyond me. And
so how did you do it? That's what I'm asking. I was like,
oh,
like, no. You gave great detail, but I'm saying, how did you get away from that? And then what did you do to make them good people?
Well, it wasn't hard to get away from that because there was nowhere to go that fed me.
No, I get it. But I'm
yeah.
saying, like, how did they become these beautiful people?
Well, they're beautiful people because I live a life that God would want. And I try to reflect that in them. And they're sponges. Your kids are sponges. And so I could tell by the way they picked up when I was teaching them strictly like church this, Bible that, blah, blah, blah. They took up whatever I taught them and they ran with it.
Yeah.
And when I started getting more into my personal, rather into my relationship with God as it relates to an entire organization, my focus became less on the stories and more on the lessons that were in there.
Yeah.
And that's what I focus on. You know, I may not call out the name, but there are lessons that are embedded in my head from growing up that I just impart on them. Like when they're, we could see people out in the street and, you know, we're riding in a certain neighborhood and people may look, you know, there might be someone that looks homeless. And so, you know, you talk to your kids about, okay, well, what should we do? I remember one time it was a guy. He was standing off of the exit in Atlanta on Cascade, and he had grocery bags around his feet inside of his shoes. And it was raining. It had been raining, but it wasn't raining anymore. And the kids saw him, and they kept telling me to look. So when I looked, I was like, he didn't have any socks. So I said, they're like, he has bags. And I was like, yeah. I said, he doesn't have any socks. And they said, we should get him some socks. So we went to Walmart. It was like 2 minutes away. And we got 2 packs of socks and we brought them back. And I gave them to him and I left them in the car. But they saw and they were so proud and they were very happy that he was helped. And
so he had socks and bags now?
Yeah. So now he got socks and bags. So I gave him some extra bags, but that's the reflection, that's the lesson, that's the message that I'm supposed to emit into the world. And so when and I see it in them.
Yeah.
You know, I remember I told Day when they went to school in Abu Dhabi, but also when they came here, you know, we paid on their account for them to eat. And so I said, Day, don't be paying for other people to have something to eat. And she said, what if they're really hungry? And I was like, she said, can I like give them some of what I got for myself? Like I got it for myself, but can I give them some of it? And I was like, yeah. But I'm just saying, I was thinking to myself, don't let nobody tell you gonna buy this for me and you buying them a whole lunch. I ain't paying for everybody's lunch. But in her head, it wasn't about somebody intimidating her. Hers was like, but what if somebody's really hungry?
Yeah.
You know, and I remember in what was it? It might have been not Abu Dhabi. It might have been in Kimberly, the last elementary school before we left. And I said the same thing. And they said, well, can I eat? And whatever, and once I feel comfortable, then I can give them everything else. And I was like, yeah. I mean, even then, it's weird because I'm thinking about it now. That was years ago. And she was giving me the same message later on. Like, I know my kids are good people. And I know that when they see people, they think of them and they want the best for them, no matter who it is. Even like Dallas politically, I be talking so much junk sometimes. And Dallas is like, they're still people. Mm-hmm. Like, mother, you have to, I have to pay attention. Like, it's not as easy as that. He's very, very open-minded. And I it's like I could teach them, but they took it and then they ran with it. And they're far more advanced than I was in thinking about the people around me at their age. So I know they're going to be amazing.
I know.
But yeah, when I just kind of stopped. Yeah, I stopped calling out the scriptures. I stopped telling the stories about Abraham and stuff. And I just started teaching the lessons. And then it got to a point where I began to look at it as that personal relationship. What is it like? Let me focus on what is it really supposed to look like? What am I really supposed to get from this higher power in this world? What do they want from me? And I stopped looking at the book to tell me, and I started listening to myself, because I do believe that the creator is inside of you, the essence of whoever it is, he or she. And I know I grew up saying it's a he, but at the same time, let's say they. Yeah. Their essence is in each one of us.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. And so I figured if I listened, I already knew what I was supposed to be doing. And so my faith became less focused on one book and more so on
experiences, life.
Yeah. And just understanding what does it mean to help advance the beauty that was already created. I'm not meant to go and tear down some trees and build up no big old house. I'm not meant to do that. I'm not meant to take from people. I'm not meant to do, like, I want to plant more flowers. I want to plant more trees. You know, I want to support what he they have created. I want to give to people because they made those people. You know what I'm saying? And even though they might have had hard times, or other people made decisions that impacted them, that put them in that place, or they made decisions, it doesn't mean that I'm not supposed to give and balance it out. I believe in that idea of homeostasis. I think everybody should have their bare necessities, their needs met. And if I have and you don't, I want to give. I want to balance you out. I don't want to see people hurting or homeless or hungry, and even beyond that, I don't want to see somebody struggling and they need counseling. I don't want to see people, it's stuff like that. And so I can't pay for you to go to a therapist, but I can listen. I can offer what I know, or I can listen and not offer anything, because sometimes people just want you to listen and not tell them a solution. But I'm just figuring that it's my job to either keep the homeostasis of what was intended or to elevate it. But it's not to tear it down or to take from it. And
how do you determine what elevates homeostasis then? Because I'm thinking, like, I get it, I do, but who determines the next one is necessary for you to be able to get to this next point?
Well, that's the thing. The elevation part, I don't really know.
That's what I'm saying. But when you say you want to give back,
yeah, I mean, and when I have the opportunity, sometimes you give of yourself and it takes a little bit away from you. Like if my needs are met at level 3 and I see somebody who's at level 0, my needs are met, but I'm not over an abundance. Like, I'm not at 5 or 6. If I still give from my 3 and I'm down to 2 so that this other person can have something, I'm okay with that.
I know, but is your homeostasis at 3 or is it 2?
Yeah, let's say it's at 3.
So why would you? How
because
can you be
I feel like if somebody else is struggling that much, what is it to take from me? Because I'll get it again. I'll get it back. It'll come back. It's just like when you give blood. If you take from your system, your body will create all of that again. Like, it'll create that the plasma when you donate plasma. Your body will bring itself back to its stable level, even if you take from it.
Do you think you're supposed to give so that you can grow?
I think you definitely do. I think you definitely do. You do grow when you give, and and when you stretch yourself. I don't think I can never take myself down. I've been a person who has given more than I am capable of surviving off of. Like, I give so much that I put myself in a hole. I've definitely done that. And that's not my ministry. What I need to be doing is, but I do need to hand off. I need to share. Like, I'm definitely blessed and favored when I look at my life and the things that could have happened. But also when I look at it, it's like I'm not just supposed to be, receiving. I have to start giving. And it's easier for people to give when they know that they're going to receive something back. And the idea isn't to give so you can receive more. But it's like, I know that I won't struggle long. Yeah. But I know that I need to buffer whatever is happening over here for them. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I can go without for a little bit so that they can. And I believe that Day and Dallas are just like that. And so that's how I know that I don't need the book to tell me. And part of me can say it was ingrained in me for so long of my life that, you teach a child and they'll never depart from it, right? And
unless you didn't teach it well.
Yeah, true. But in the case of Christianity, the way that my family grew up, it was very much so a very important message that you had to have in a lesson in a way of life. And I believe it's embedded in me. And what I did was I just took the names out, but I kept the lessons in. And I don't know what that's going to look like later for my kids. I didn't even realize I was doing it until like we're talking about it now. And I'm like, okay, maybe I did make that transition like that. But they're still good people. And I know that they'll pour that into their children if they choose to have them. So they trying to pour it into me because sometimes I'll be acting up and they'll be like, Mommy, let's start thinking about this.
I know that. So thinking about how you were taught and how we're teaching our kids, what does it look like as them being parents, distributing this information? Like, what do you think it looks like? Like, do they even flirt with church? Do they just start out with lessons, or do they just tell experience if they've gone on, or is it just different? Are they already going to come equipped with it? Because they're naturally going to just have this, how they operate in life, where they don't have to enforce anything because that's just how they live. What do you think? If that makes sense?
Kind of, I think. I feel like I don't think that their spiritual connection to God is going to be through a church. Mm-hmm. Just thinking about their personalities. But I do believe that they live it. That's the only way they know how to live. And so they'll pour that into their kids just like they took up from me. Mm-hmm. Their kids will take up from them. And I don't see either one of them returning to the church. If they do, it wouldn't have been a problem. But I just don't see that. I think that like everybody thinks that their kids are great, but I'm just going to say this about mine. They're very honest with us. And whatever lessons they haven't learned as they move on, even if they're not in a church and have a Bible in front of them that's teaching these lessons, they always come back to us. Yeah. They always talk to us. So it's not like the lessons are lost. We have conversations and it just guides them and they continue on their way. They trust us. And so with that, I'm not as concerned because I know they'll always have that guidance. And because that's the only way they know, I feel like it's their way of being, and they're going to just carry it on. They just won't need the Bible to tell them.
Yeah, when you started saying it, I was like, the way that they live now could influence anybody who's around them. Like, hey, they don't really do that things like that. They don't. Yeah. It doesn't cross their mind. Yeah. And I sometimes I guess I start thinking about sheltering your kids away from things. I'm like, what have we sheltered them from that could possibly hurt them?
Well, I think there were a lot of things that, one of the things that I'm sad we did and I know you know this, I'm sad that we called ourselves sheltering them from public education.
Yeah.
I feel like they missed out on the opportunity to communicate with a lot of a more diverse group of people, to learn more. I think they would have been more in tune with the culture that we knew. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, those are very strong influences. So would we have had these same kids? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What problems would have developed?
Yeah. What are we trading out? Yeah. We would have had to trade something out. But I do believe that we sheltered them from the world we grew up. It's funny because we wanted to keep them away from the world we grew up in, but then we wanted to equip them to fight whoever in that world when the time came. So I'd say, we sheltered them a bit from.
You know, listening to you say that made me think like they would have had a better what is it called? A pool of interactions with people. Yeah. Where they would have developed different life skills that they weren't able to do because where they are had different survival tactics.
And it's funny because I feel like we depended on Darius for that.
Yeah,
because Darius was a different kind of kid. I mean, he's still dynamic, but he was just different. And we had hoped that the two, like that Day and Dallas, would spill into him and he would spill into them.
Balance each other out.
Yeah, and in some ways they did, and in other ways, like, not so much. So, they could appreciate, and I can even tell now because he's been gone, and Dallas is like, I kind of miss him.
He said that to me too recently.
Yeah, and so I feel like, we tried, but we felt like that was the safe exposure. We couldn't control what other kids they met in the backgrounds and things of that nature, but we understood where Darius came from, and so we could balance all of that out. And I think that was another bit of control that we had. Yeah. We still sheltered them. We put them in a controlled environment, even though they were with people who were different than them.
For sure.
And so, What about you? Like, I'm sorry, I've just dominated everything.
No,
how have you parented differently?
I think just now, I was talking earlier. I was doing the same practices, except it was less harsh, but my voice remained the same. I was real tough, physical in the beginning, but now I really believe that you don't have to touch your kids if you have the patience and the want to try to figure out what can you say for them to be like, oh, I get it. Right. But if you think that they're just supposed to do what you say, they're not really learning a lesson. They're just learning what you said you don't want them to do.
Yeah.
So to me, I feel like I've evolved into a more conscious parent that want to really compliment you. Mm-hmm. Because I I was just listening and evaluating. I was like, you've done so much to create their foundation. I was just like, I wasn't a participant in that. And I was just thinking like there was things I just reinforced. Mm-hmm. But overall, I can tell you as a man, like I was just a disciplinarian and complimenting the house financially and trying to create order as far as consistency. But outside of that, I didn't put anything into them until like me really recently in the last few years, where I grew as a person, where I was like, if I could give them these things that I just now found at 40, what can I do to like for them to receive it now, because they'll be that much more better when they turn 40. So just listening to how much you did made me realize I'm glad I took the communication aspect, because I have some good ideas or some good thoughts or whatnot, but if they can't receive it, it's like wah 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 wah.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I've grown as a parent in comparison to my father, because it was very abusive growing up, verbally, physically. But I know that he meant well. Mm-hmm. Just meaning well still doesn't. It's not as productive as actually doing it.
Impact versus intention.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that now, seeing how Dallas and I speak, I know that what I'm doing is right.
Oh yeah, because he wasn't really speaking much at all. And when you first got back, you guys have really built such a close connection again.
Well, no, I think it's better now because he definitely just volunteers things without me asking.
Yeah.
So I was like, I really like the feeling that I was having. Just, I guess, like, I think every father would want that, but thinking about why a kid wouldn't talk to their father is just because they're afraid that whatever they're going to say is going to hurt their feelings or whatever it might feel like. And now I'm just trying to talk to him like a human,
Yeah.
like just not even as a father, but as a human, but with the father impact.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So not the ignorant father intent.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job.
I appreciate that. And, I'm looking forward to just continuing getting better because as they become adults, they'll still need. Oh, it's my phone.
That hurts.
Okay. Oh, I guess I could turn it off now, but anyways. Yeah, so that's where I am. Just I know that I'm a better communicator than my father.
Oh yeah, most certainly.
Yeah.
Most certainly. That video I sent you a couple of days ago of the little boy
who was
expressing his feelings.
He was cold.
Look. But I was like, just imagine what level his parents were on to him. So it's a clip of a little boy and he's explaining to his mom, he's like 2. And I couldn't believe he was 2, but he's 2. And he was like explaining to her how he was upset. He was upset, and so he made a bad decision about how he acted, and he apologized. And then he brought something up about his dad, like his dad didn't make a good decision and how he reacted either or something. And the way he described his feelings, I was angry and I was sad. Like he separated them. He understood that there were different things going on at different times. I was like, this is what John would be pushing for if our kids were little.
Oh yeah, now
you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
But it was great to see. Shoot, the next generation is doing totally different things with some feelings.
Yeah.
So
emotional intelligence.
Yeah. I really maybe that's something that we should be looking. Giving the kids other words to describe their feelings and stuff.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's the next thing we should be working on because sometimes I don't know.
They can't describe what's actually, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I definitely recognize that, but I didn't know how to go about doing it.
Like it hurts, but we don't know why it hurts. Is it embarrassing? Is it, what is it? Yeah.
Definitely. Anybody want to give a shout out before we get out of here?
Jeanette, my granny. She has been gone for a really, really long time now, like 21 years, I think. And the other day, I was watching a video. I don't know if we talked about this. I was watching a video, and this guy was, he saw his grandmother. He hadn't seen her in so long, and he ran up to her, and I burst into tears. Like 21 years after my grandmother's been gone, sometimes I still speak of her in the present tense. But her impact was it was everything to me. I want to be like her. I don't want to be called Granny, though. I told John last night I want to be called Toots. That's what I want my grandkids to call me. But I want that same impact. Like, that's what I want. And it's funny because when I told this story, I'm sorry, it's about to go long. I told the story where every time I went to my grandmother's house, if you went to go take a nap, it didn't matter if you were 17. I was 17 one time and I was really sick. And she came to pick me up. And she put me in her room and she laid down all of her sheets were always cold. And so you lay on this cold, crispy sheet and then she, snaps the sheet out over top of you and it just falls down on you and it's cold too. And she took care of us. And when we go over my mom's house, Dallas immediately goes to the bed and lays down and then goes to sleep. And to me, it reminds me of my experience. Like, it's just a safe place. You know what I mean? So I want to be that. I want to be Jeanette. So I want to give a shout out to Jeanette and her impact.
No doubt. Shout out to Jeanette. I want to thank everybody who tunes in and checks us out. Your time is totally appreciated. Shout out to all of you guys, and make today better than yesterday. Don't worry about anything you can't control. GATA. Get after that action, or that action will get after you. Be great on purpose. Boom.